But despite the atmosphere of relief that greeted the Supreme Court's order suspended the deadline for acceptance of old Naira and banknotes as legal tender, compliance to the order was near zero across the banks and markets as old notes were rejected, indicating that they are sticking to the Central Bank of Nigeria's February 10, 2023 deadline. Also, operators of point of sales cash services sustained their high charges during the period, despite the threat by CBN to withdraw their licenses over the widespread hike in charges far beyond officially approved tariff. The persistent scarcity of the Naira, both new and old, have continued to worsen, causing untold hardship for both citizens and businesses, even as Nigerians continue to spend hours in queues to access the new Naira notes. Last December, the CBN introduced the new notes made efforts to fight corruption, terrorism, counterfeiting, and other related crimes. However, Nigerians have had a hard time in getting the new notes amid scarcity and rising tension across the country. As I tell you now, pictures in, we also have that in Ibadan, there are already pockets of protest in some locations around Ibadan. Also in Edo State, we also have pockets of protest, and everyone is angry at saying that they cannot get this new note. They cannot go ahead with their day-to-day activities. Everyone seems to be stuck. Now, what is really happening? What is playing out? What are the issues? What are the macroeconomic issues this could build up? Where could this take us to? A country that is struggling for survival after a recession, 2 recessions in recent times, and other economic woes that we face as a country. Well, let's talk to the managing director and Chief Business Officer of Optimus by AfriInvest, Mr. Ayodeji Ebo. Mr. Ebo, good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining the program.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Well, I don't know how much of the new notes you have, but for me, it's not been easy getting these notes. Yes, and so something seems to be wrong somewhere. Despite the order of the Supreme Court, I know you're not a lawyer, but many thought that we would have stayed back at least to wait for the 15th. But banks are rejecting this note. A lot of small business owners still have it in their possession. What do you think would happen, and what does this mean if we continue this way?
Okay, thanks. I think what we're just seeing is um, the challenge we are seeing is the time that's available for the transition. So we all agreed then that the time really was short, and it is that makes it very difficult to have that transition happen. But secondly, um, we will also look at the availability of the new notes. It's not sure that the quantity of what we have compared to what has been taken is really minimal. And even speaking to people on the street, speaking to some bank workers, and you hear that by the time you take, maybe for instance, citing an example, that you take 1 billion naira worth of notes to the CBN, and maybe they are just giving you about 5 million new notes. So you would see that the proportion of what is coming, because maybe based on what is also available. So that is part of what is causing this scarcity that we're seeing. And it's because of also when you talked about the court judgment, which is an interim court judgment. I think we were all waiting for today, the 15th, to see whether there will be like a final court judgment. So I don't think that the banks can act, or anyone will act on the interim judgment. And also there was no circular from the CBN stating that they are also shifting ground on this. So there was enough notification, but what also caused the confusion or caused the complexity was the scarcity. Because if you even go to POS terminals, they will still give you a mixture of both old and new notes. And I think I saw a circular yesterday from the CBN, if it's, though I've not verified it from their website, that banks have also been told not to accept. And if they would accept, there's a process. You have to, there's a process for that. And you may not get value. So if you are returning your Naira now, even the banks that are taking it, it's just like they are taking it out of the circulation, and you have to register on a link with the CBN to get that submitted, or you may even have to go to the CBN to submit your Naira. So you will see that it's really very complex, and that's also very pathetic that a lot of innocent people or may also lose value, because when you're holding old notes and it now becomes valueless in your hands, then it's a bit of loss.
Now, considering the pains and anguish that we see people going through now all through the country, not just the states now, or across the country, and we are saying that more than about 50%, or some people say 60% of Nigerians are unbanked, that they don't have bank accounts. It looks like this could have been done better, Mr. Evo. Let's agree with ourselves.
No, I think I totally agree that, you know what, that's why I started that in terms of planning, there's a lot of things that would have been done better, because the timing might also have been elongated beyond this, so that there's more time to see the transition, or there's more time to inflow new notes into the economy. And like you rightly said, that there's still our economy is cash driven. We're also looking at the data that from NIBS that also show that there's been an increase in the adoption of electronic banking channels. The POS has increased, the use of electronic internet banking and the likes have also increased. So now with limited option, or the scarcity, I'll say with the scarcity, a lot of those that are even supposed to have migrated to the use of the electronic channels are now forced to migrate to that channel. But we're also aware that for even the rural areas, they now have, most of them have agents. That's what they use, the POS, the agents that they use for their transaction. So what we would see, even within we know there's still a bit of rigidity around when you look at markets not accepting not accepting cash. But over time, when there's now confidence, they may use their agents to receive those cash, and you pay for the amount you use to collect the funds out of the agent's money. So change is really going to be tough, but there's supposed to be, we're supposed to, assuming we have more time, it would have also been better, and the pains that Nigerians are going through. So for instance, since last week, I've been trying to get cash, and I was asked to come and pay 4,000 Naira for 20,000. So I'm not that desperate. Let's see, but nothing has changed. Even as of today, trying to still get, nothing more has changed. And for you to get, you may even have to spend the whole day at the bank before you even get, if it's the 20,000 Naira limit for that day. So it's really very painful, and it's impacting on businesses, because there are still some businesses that are cash driven, or for those business owners that have not adopted online system. And just to add, even the online system, the improvement we have seen is like it has also led to a breakdown of those online systems. So we're seeing increase in the number of failed transactions, which is also sending a negative signal for those that were not used to using this online system before, having the funds that they are transferred hanging in the system, and it's not reversed after several hours or days. So these are some of the things that needs to also even be addressed for people to be confident to adopt even more of this online system.
Stay with the online platforms and the challenges the pose at this time, because I spoke to my guest yesterday, told me that he's been trying to transfer, and it took him almost 24 hours to get that done. Even the USSD codes, for me, it's not been functional for more than 1 week. All you can make do over times is the online transfers and all of this. Now, let's look at our capacity to execute this volume or this capacity of transactions that we have at the moment? Do we really have it? We had a presidential candidate talking about bringing in fintech companies, reducing charges on POS at the moment so that, we can bring more people and people get so interested in sending their monies online. When I have to pay as much as 400 Naira to get 5,000 Naira, it doesn't encourage me to go there. Who bears that brunt?
Okay, thanks. So I think that when we talk about the payment, so the 400 Naira you're talking is before the Naira scarcity. And for a lot of people, they also look at the convenience, look at what are the options that are available. So they look at the convenience of it. So the 200 Naira, the 300 Naira that have been charged, when you look at the cost, excuse me, yeah, you look at the cost of the closest bank to you, or you want to make a transfer. So I would, to me, in my own view, when you look at that cost of 200, 300 Naira on that was still here. But with the current charges, it's really very significant that it's becoming unbearable. So you look at it that you are charging almost 20 or 30% of the value of the funds. By the time you also add the inflation rate. So it's like the value of your Naira is being eroded by almost 50%, which yes, one is immediate loss and the other is virtual or arbitrary loss in terms of value. But by and large, I would say that it's important that there's a need to now increase the capacity. So what is leading to some of those failed transactions most times is because there has been increase in the number. Most people now that are not using USSD code to transfer now want to use it. And maybe there's a capacity in terms of the queue that it can take at once. So there's a need for most banks now trying to see how they want to increase the capacity in terms of number of people that can use it at once. And that would take a bit of time before that adjustment would also happen. So I think by and large, it's really going to be like a painful period for almost everyone now. And for most people will learn from it and would also get over it. But I would say that with still this scarcity, there's a need to still allow the old currency, because if most people don't have access to it, then they don't have access to the new currency, then there should be access to at least the old currency, pending when there's enough in circulation.
Okay, now let me move forward to ask that the current approach is what many are talking about, saying that something needs to be done to address this. But for me, moving forward with this situation, now the case has been adjourned again to the 22nd of February. I say it again, I know you're not a lawyer, but we are supposed to maintain status quo until then. But as it is, you said it in your first submission, both the old and the new notes seems not to be available. So where do we go from here? What will be your suggestion for us to not get ourselves stuck in this? We expect inflation figures anytime from now. It might not look too good by the time we get it.
Okay, thanks. I think the only solution here is to increase the supply of the new Naira. And if that is not possible, then the second, so I would say the first is to look at the increasing supply for the new Naira. And if it's not possible based on the available capacity, then looking at making the old Naira a legal tender, pending when there's enough in circulation.
I mean, Mr. Adedi, let's wrap up this conversation now. And my final question would be, many will say countries have done this before now, but it wasn't this difficult. They'll say it was so seamless. People give you examples of countries like India. They'll tell you about the United Kingdom at the moment trying to change the face of their notes, and they don't have much of this kind of challenge. So what do you think? You talked about the timing, if they should be a little bit extended, but what would be our lesson from this if we are to take out from all of these challenges that we face?
Okay, thanks. I think the number one lesson is to plan early, because when you talk out, it's also been done in Nigeria before. So it's to plan early, and once you have, based on the discussions in the papers or even from CBN governor, it's currently printed using the minting and printing company in Nigeria. So one may also want to wonder what the capacity is, given the short period that is required. So that may be part of what is causing the complexity. And the lesson here is to give enough time so that you already know that you have the stock. The stock here is the new notes before you even set a deadline, because you know the quantity of what you are trying to take out and what you are trying to withdraw. Why it has always been seamless before is that, one, it's printed, there's enough time, and secondly, it's printed abroad. So there would have been an agreement on the quantity that is needed, and there's enough time for them to deliver that, and they're able to bring it in.
I must thank you so much, Mr. Ayodeji Ebo, for your time on the show. He is the Managing Director and Chief Business Officer of Optimus by AfriInvest. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.